Nerdcast assemble!
Stay dandy, baby.
The power of friendship conquers all in another exciting and super cheesy episode of Digimon Adventure. Finally, we get the return of none other than Yamato, and it looks like he's bringing along his partner Digimon, Gabumon, to the big adventure. The big reboot of the Digimon anime, which is honestly pretty good so far. I think one of my biggest things about this entire new adaptation is how they're doing things a little different and how it almost feels exactly the same all at the same time. I mean, all the characters pretty much have their same character quirks, but the way that they meet and the adventures that they're going on are completely different than the stuff that we saw from the previous adaptation. And for me, that's how you do a reboot/remake. And this episode right here was pretty great. It was a straight reintroduction to the character of Yamato, otherwise known as Matt, and his partner Digimon as he meets Taichi and all his friends, and this is a very simple kind of episode, which essentially is just all of them meeting on this island and trying to storm this massive fortress, which is completely surrounded by all of these powerful Digimon, such as Tankmon, which is essentially just a living tank which blasts the shit out of anything that it can see, and it's all supported by this massive sniper Digimon, which is basically a giant gorilla with frickin' Mega Man's cannon on his hand. He's called Goramon, and he's supported by another group of Digimon known as Solarmon, which essentially create lights for him. So their entire plan, which at first I thought was really kind of stupid, I'm like, why don't they just go around this fortress? Why do they have to storm it in the first place? Well, according to Yamato, apparently if they make their way inside the fortress, they might find some answers as to what's truly going on in the actual world. And we do get some cryptic stuff like that at the very end of the episode, but really this is just more of a straight introduction to Yamato and how he's going to interact with the other team. And very true to the original Digimon anime series, he's very much a lone wolf type of character, which is no coincidence either that his Digimon literally digivolves into a giant freaking wolf itself, but that's always been the deal with Yamato/Matt. Like, he's always been sort of like the cool guy of the group, the Raphael, if you know what I mean. He doesn't need help from anyone, and when he learns about the power of friendship, it has to be the hard way. The good news is they mostly get through that very quick in this episode, where at the beginning, he essentially tells all of his friends, stay here on the beach, I'm gonna storm this place with Garurumon and kick all sort of Digimon ass. However, it's not until he realizes that the other people are actually helping him out that he realizes the importance of working together and trying to get things done with the power of friendship. It's cheesy, and they don't exactly say that out loud or anything, but I do love that he actually realizes that, and I was really afraid that they were immediately going to go down the route of Yamato and Taichi just immediately fighting with each other's ideals about what it means to be a team and fight together and using their Digimon. I'm sure that's something that's probably going to pop up its, ugly head later on down the line, but for the most part, they just sort of ram right through this episode, constantly giving you that Digimon action that you want to see, and now that we have most of the core group together, everybody pretty much gets to do something awesome with their Digimon, which is really great. And something that I've never really brought up a lot in my previous reviews of this series, I love how a lot of the times now the kids are actually working directly with their Digimon. Like, it's little things, like Yamato actually riding on top of Garurumon, which, yes, he did a lot in the original series, but having them always stay with their partner Digimon a lot really sort of amplifies sort of the danger of the series and shows that they're not just relying on their monsters to do all the work for them. They're there with them for the entire battle every single time, and it sort of raises the stakes a little bit. Hell, there's a scene where Joe almost gets completely blasted into oblivion in this episode, and if it wasn't for his friends helping him out, well, he'd probably be turned into a giant pile of blood and guts. It's, again, one of those episodes that reminds you that while this is definitely a kid's anime, they're in a very dangerous world with a lot of monsters who just want to fuck them up. And it makes it kind of terrifying in some senses, especially because a lot of the Digimon in this episode are pretty damn creepy looking. The Tankmon, if I saw one of those in real life, I would shit my britches like you wouldn't believe. And let's talk about Dark Tyrannomon. I love that they got that thing to return. It could have gone standard with a regular Tyrannomon, but I always really love the design of the Dark version. Having the black color scheme, the green spikes, and the weird wrappings around its massive claws, it gave an excuse to see everybody fight against it as well as the Tankmon, and it made it really damned exciting. I also really loved the scene towards the end where Yamato realized how hard his friends were working for him, and that gave him and Garurumon the edge to take down Goramon, and a really fantastic scene where they jump onto his tower, grab onto him, throw him in the air, and blast the ever-living shit out of him. It's pretty damn satisfying, and watching everybody do their thing was also really great too, but I do have a few things that I'm not a big fan of, but I'll get to those in a second when I get to the rundown of this episode of Digimon Adventure. So the episode ended pretty expectedly with them defeating their enemies and finding some weird mysterious room with all this like weird cryptic technology which supposedly is connected to everything going on in the real world. Taichi notices that there's something that he's actually seen before. I don't know what the hell this is, but again, it's a cliffhanger ending that's probably going to get you to watch the next episode, and that's all well and good. But for the most part, this is a straight action episode of finally getting most of our core cast together and realizing that they can't rely just on their singular abilities. They're going to have to work together if they're going to survive in this world, and it's a tried and true storyline that's been done to absolute death in pretty much every anime imaginable. Hell, it was done in the original Digimon Adventure, but they kind of had to remind you of that now that we finally have most of the core team together. I believe the only people that are actually missing from the group now is Yamato's younger brother and Taichi's younger sister. And I wonder if, like the original series, they're going to hold off on introducing Taichi's sister and they're just going to bring in TK for a little bit. I forgot what his Japanese name is going to be, but I have a feeling they're probably going to get to him in the next episode, which again brings another interesting dynamic to the table with Yamato having to look out for his older brother as well as his friends. But again, you know, I love this episode, and there were a lot of things I liked about it. I thought it was a much stronger experience than the last couple of episodes, mostly because I think Yamato and Gabumon are just really cool. I mean, what's not to love about this giant wolf? It's just badass. But man, I've been talking about this for a couple of episodes, and it annoyed me in this one too, and maybe I'm harping on it just a little too much. Why won't they give Birdramon an actual evolution animated sequence? I was so excited in this episode when Sora came up and she's like, Piyomon, let's do it! And I'm like, oh man, we're finally gonna see Birdramon, and it's a really cool animation sequence, and it just flash cuts to an immediate form of Birdramon, and I don't know why they're holding back and they don't care about Birdramon. It's just so freaking weird. We got to see Gabumon evolving in this episode. We got to see Greymon for the 1000th time doing its evolution. Everybody's had their evolution and the animation attached to it except for Birdramon. And it may have something to do with the animation delays or something else going on with the animation department. But what do they got against Birdramon, man? Like I said, it doesn't affect my score of the episode, but it's just something I want to talk about because for some odd reason they just absolutely refuse to give Birdramon a freaking evolution process and just immediately... And it happened like twice in this episode. Twice it happened. It's ridiculous. So, other than that, I thought this is still a solid episode. Now that the characters are all together, it's definitely more interesting and starting to feel a little more classic. And like I said, all of the character quirks are still there. There's really funny moments like when Joe decides to actually try and surrender to the enemy Digimon by taking a towel, putting on a stick, and using it as a flag, which Mimi claims is her towel, even though it belongs to Taichi. Again, it's all their little personality quirks that make this episode funny. Hell, when they were making their way to the island, funny little detail is that Mimi was actually braiding Ikakumon's fur. It doesn't say much, but it says so much about her actual personality, and there's little moments like that that are sort of sprinkled throughout the entire episode that remind you that while these characters are sort of stock in some senses, there are layers to them that make them kind of interesting and fun. Still, though, it's all backed up by the amazing Digimon themselves. I think the Tankmon are really awesome looking. I love the designs of them. Goromon, it's just a gorilla with a gun on its freaking hand. Like, that's the only feeling I really have about that one. But Dark Tyrannomon, I think, looks really awesome. He's one of those weird Digimon designs that's just, it screams 90s. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the dark wrappings around it, the fact that it's so dark and edgy. That's what makes Digimon so interesting, and how their designs are so different from, say, something like Pokemon. But otherwise, I thought this was a pretty solid edition. Still not a perfect episode, still not quite reaching the heights of those first 3 episodes, but still entertaining nonetheless, especially for old school Digimon fans, which is why I'm going to give it, that's right, a 4 out of 5. You heard my thoughts about the episode. I want to hear yours. Make sure to sound off in the comment section below and tell me what you thought about this episode of Digimon Adventure, the return of Yamato and Garurumon. Did you have a favorite scene from this episode? Favorite Digimon battle? Are you as annoyed about the whole Birdramon thing as I am? Maybe you're not at all. And what do you hope to see from the future of this brand new adaptation of the classic 90s anime series Digimon? So thank you guys so much for watching this review. Please subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this one. If you liked this video, Digivolve into your mega form, hit that like button, helps out these videos a lot. But if you really want to go the extra mile, check out my Patreon. In fact, I want to go ahead and thank all of my patrons who've been checking out my Patreon page. You guys have made some awesome donations to the channel, and remember, if you do make a donation, I'll review an anime series of your choice. So there it is, my friends. Thank you again for watching this video. I'll see you all next time, and as always, stay down there, baby.